Okay. Um, what's up? What's up, Al? You are dying of a heat stroke, so I thought it would be a good exercise um, to try to diagnose this while recording my screen and talking out loud, so I could I don't know. It's kind of like talking with you. If we were sitting here trying to figure this out. Um, so you can kind of understand my thought process of how I would try to go about debugging this. I don't even know if I can fix this, but I'm gonna try. And so I think it's best if I just start from scratch. So I've only pulled up the GitHub repository. Um, okay, let's do it like this. This is how I normally do it with students whenever I'm driving with them, just sharing a screen and just kind of going step by step. So let's do that. So here is your repository. I'm going to grab this repository link and I'm going to actually, no. Sorry, I don't want to put this in this directory. Okay. Git clone. Oops, that is the wrong thing. Git clone. This guy. Okay, so now clones, and I'm going to integrate. Now we'll open it up. Okay, welcome to my computer. This. I don't think we're going to play around with the JS, so I'm just going to put these side by side. Lose the browser. Scooch this down a little bit. Okay, we're fine. Right. So I think, let's see. I think that the best way to go about diagnosing this kind of thing, um, I'm like a really big fan of using the inspector in Chrome for just kind of figuring out how things are being overridden, um, how the CSS is fighting with itself, and the inspector in Chrome and Firefox, for that matter. They're all the same these days when it comes to the browser tools. Um, I think it's funny that people don't use this more often, and I don't know if it's just because I'm some kind of fucking power user, or if it's something that genuinely is kind of obscure in the browser tools. So with that, we're looking at this is the desktop view, and pop open the inspector. Uh, something here, we can come back to this script tag. Obviously, you're adding an event listener to something. We can come back to that, but I think for portfolio page, you probably just want the console to be clean because developer dorks, that's the first thing they're gonna do. Um, just low hanging fruit shit. So my favorite way to go about targeting things that we're trying to find is using the pointer tool, and that's Command Shift C, or it's this thing right here. Select an element on this page. So Command Shift C. And I'm looking for, I'm trying to find the div. I'm trying to find a div that houses this flexbox thing. So you have these arrows, and the arrows are getting pushed down when we go to the mobile media query. So it's working here, but so by using this, you can tell. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, so I'm just gonna assume that you haven't. Anytime you mouse over an element using this pointer tool in inspector, it just kind of it's cool because it gives you like an outline of the actual div of the thing that you're hovering over, so it can really help you with for example this this is like a div that's housing this. Oops. It looks like it's just housing these two things. Yeah. So the blue is like the actual content of whatever's inside the div, and then this like orange color. I don't know why I'm pointing. You can't see me pointing. This orange stuff over here is like your margin that you're padding. And so if you click on that, you can actually scroll down and it'll give you like the exact dimensions of that, so you have like 65 top bottom and then 20 left and right, which is, yeah, that's right. But that's not what we're concerned with. So we're trying to figure out this div right here. So click on it, and I'm gonna scrunch this until we can pop that media query. So it looks like you have 3 media queries. So there's like full, this is middle. You can tell that the arrows are, I guess they're not center. I don't know if that bothers you. And then this one is the fucked up one. So again, let's try to figure out why that's happening. So the name of this div is column1. So let me just go to the CSS and move this. Okay, this is better. Okay, looking at the CSS. Whoa. Let's try to set this out. Oh, also, we're not even, sorry. We need to be actually viewing this one in the browser so we can tell the changes. Because obviously I'm not going to see the changes from my VS Code in your live version. Okay. So your CSS is everything is an ID. That is crazy. I think everything. Yeah, it looks like everything is an ID. You will have to regale me sometime with your thoughts on that. I don't think it's not, I don't know if that's like a bad thing. I don't know if that's like a bad practice or not. There's some like people that have like really strong opinions about like IDs are only for important things. If you're, well, if you're converting this into React, then like this is a horrible idea because React is like very React and Angular and Vue, like a lot of those type frameworks, they're all pretty um, they like have different usage for IDs. So like everything is kind of in a class. Um, I realized that, I'm saying that it's not a bad thing that everything is an ID, but I think that it's like not, it's not a good thing. Um, I think it's like the specificity of an ID should be used when it's like appropriate. Like all these things, you can get away with having like column and box, left, right. Like these are all classes. So instead of using the octothorpe or the hash, I would just use a dot so I can keep it all as a class. And if you wanted to change all of them, like one quick way of doing that is you can just, so I'm selecting the first hash, the first octothorpe, and I'm doing a, can you see? Hold on, let me try to remember the keyboard shortcut. It's, oh, damn, you can't do it because of these other ones. But there's a keyboard shortcut in VS Code, which is, um, I'll do like the word width. So if I want to select all the widths in the file, I can do a Command D, and it'll jump to like all those widths, and then I could like change it to, um, I could name it zoom off, and zoom off is going to replace all those widths that I select. But I'm not going to do that. And so the case and the problem here is that I can't select all these octothorpes because you have these like, it's also specified in colors, so that's kind of tricky. But that's not important. Like for what we're doing, let's just focus on the flexbox thing. Okay, so the name of the div Forgot because I'm talking too much. Name of this div. Column one. Okay, so this is column one, this is column two. One thing that I like to do when I'm like debugging shit is I will do a border 5 pixels solid salmon. Trying to get away from red these days. So solid salmon. That's also what they used to call me in high school. So 5 pixels. Okay, we know this div. There's like nothing. I do this so we can keep everything contained, so we know exactly what we're targeting. So that I can like assure myself that column one is in fact like the div that I should be trying to focus on. So column one, let's see, has, where are you setting the flexbox property? Okay, maybe it's something in column one. So column one, okay, that's left is a div, this image is a div, and right is a div. Okay, so this is a 3 column. Got it. 3 columns in column one. And then column two is just 1 column. Okay, so here is something interesting. Well, I could just show you in the the HTML that I have over here. So you have, no, it's this one. Okay, this. So here's your left arrow, here's your image, here's your right arrow. This is probably easier if you have this image inside of a div. Make it so it's smaller. So basically what it just did, I realized, sorry, I'm doing like a lot of like keyboard hocus pocus. You have a div for your left, an image, and then a div for the right. If you don't, so this column, I'm gonna dig further into the CSS, but column one, I'm guessing has a CSS property that is declaring flex on it. And flexbox is temperamental when it's like working with stuff that isn't a div. So if you have like an image tag or an href or a button element, if you have an element that's not a div, like flexbox gets confused and doesn't know that it's supposed to like center it. It doesn't know that it's like supposed to it's weird, like the standard, like the protocol with flexbox like has changed a couple times, and it's this weird thing where like it keeps changing like how the behavior regulates with things that are not divs. And I think that um, it's usually just best to be on the safe side. And anytime that you have things inside of a flex container, so your flex container for this left side is your arrow, your image, and your other arrow. Um, your arrows are both in divs, and the image should be in a div too. You should keep them all uniform. So that way, when you're trying to like flex with the content inside of that like big parent div, you're not gonna have like unexpected behavior. And this little thing could actually maybe fix it. So I don't know. Let's try it. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm just using a keyboard shortcut, just like dot middle. I'm assuming that's not in the CSS. So dot middle, and it's going to give me a class div. And then I'm just moving that up. And note that I'm using a class and not an ID, but it should matter because a div is a div is a div. It doesn't matter if it's an ID, if it's a class. Know that. Okay, this is now a div with 3 divs inside of it. So let me save that, see if that makes a difference. Full size, medium size. Okay, doesn't change it. I'm also noticing something weird here too, where this arrow is spacing out. So let me do, okay, that's because this is not centered. This is another cool thing about hovering over in CSS Inspector. It's like you see the blue space between the image. Like you see how on, I can't point at it with the mouse because it'll throw it off. But so let's do this like a book on tape. Um, Mouth coding, as I call it. You see how there's like a blue, like a thin blue line on the side of the image, and then like that big fat line on the right side. The blue is telling you that like the space, the justification is not, it's not equal. I don't know if that's obvious. I'm sorry if that's like, yeah, we fucking get it. But if in case you don't, that's like a surefire thing to tell you why your shit is getting pushed aside. Like that arrow is only being pushed because for some reason there's on that media query in your middle div, it's not. It's weird. Why is that? It's not showing up here either, which is the strange thing. Maybe that has something to do. Let me go back and change back to what it was before. Um, okay, that's weird. The div seemed to throw that off. Maybe, oh, wait a second. That's maybe because, no, you don't have anything inside of CSS of middle. And besides, everything is an ID, so a class of middle wouldn't have affected that. Okay, that's weird, but let's come back to that, I guess, because that's not that's not the problem that we're trying to solve. Let's go back down to, so your breakpoint starts at 600. Yeah, no, it's like 700. Oh, interesting. You okay? So it's not a hard breakpoint. This is, see how this arrow is moving down. That's okay. This is probably this might be the problem. This might be why it's doing it. You notice how do I put this? Okay, your media queries that you have set up, it's like snapping this like two grid. Sorry, it's so annoying. This like two grid system is turning into one, or two column system is turning into a one column system. Like whenever the breakpoint hits, looks like 1,800. No, it's more. There you go. So like seven, about 800, whatever. Um, and that's like a sudden change, right? It just like snaps. Conversely, these arrows, like when you're scrunching down, you see how like the arrows are slowly moving down. It's not the arrows that are moving down, it's the image itself that's getting smaller. And because the image itself is getting smaller, the div is like shrinking to its size. So if you like, okay, so if I'm like, let me see if I can do this while I'm shrinking the window. Yeah, fuck, I don't think I can. I don't think I can, yeah, I can only mouse on one thing at a time. But basically, well, actually, let me see if I can do solid salmon on that image div. So let me, fuck, I don't know. I'll give it ID box. Where's box? Okay, looks like that's a spacing issue. This float left. You shouldn't need that. That's redundant. It might be throwing something off. Oh, is that why you're using float left? Because the, okay. Um, all right. Well, let me just add a box. I'll give a border 10 pixels solid. think of something different. A solid line. Okay, so the div itself, I'm doing this to show you that the image itself is getting smaller. So the parent div that is around it is like making up for that space. And so you are concerned with keeping these arrows centered. So let's find out how this is flexed. So column 1, center. Also, this border here, it's a minor thing, but for div, where is it? Column 1, so for your border color, instead of just matching it with the background color, it's usually better if you just make it transparent. Because white can be different. Like it's funny because you think white is just white, but in some browsers or like mobile phones are like kind of weird about what is like the native. Um, if you have like dark mode set on your phone, that can affect like if you're using an iPhone, I think Safari will adapt your browser scheme to basically just like turn your like default if it's if you have like a background color FFF on a document, it'll change that to suit the dark mode, and so you're gonna have like an ugly white border around something when you intend it to just basically be same color as the background color. So by sending it to transparent, you kind of like solve that problem because it'll just adapt to whatever the background color is. Uh, okay, so I'm trying to figure out why this 5 pixel solid salmon is disappearing once the media query happens. I guess we should be looking at the media query. So, okay, 800 pixels. Okay, column 1. This is why, because I think it's overwriting. Yeah. Okay, and I'm only commenting this shit that like this stuff out just for debugging sake. Okay, great. So I think we're getting somewhere here. Flex select direction row. So this might just be line items. Okay, so it's flex right. This is where flexbox is like so fucking dumb. So if I'm correct about this, flex direction is normally set to column, and if you change it to row, then it like inverts everything. So align items would be like what justify content is, like the X and Y axis like flip if you are using flex direction row. But let me, so justify content center. That move? No, didn't move. Okay. Usually, like I mean, my dumbass just whenever I'm using Flexbox, I just immediately go for align items center, justify content center. It's just like a reflexive like thing, and unless it's like fucking something up, then I'll just leave them both in. Um, okay, so height auto. What is that doing? Height auto. Okay, that's adapting the size of the parent div to the contents inside. That makes sense. Width 90%. Better to use view width. You can think of view width, the viewport widths as they're better responsive units of measurement. You can use percentages, and you would think that percentages and viewport width, like VW and VH, you think that that would be the same as like percentage, and it like kind of is, but when it comes to I don't know. I don't want to go down that wormhole, but just if you're interested, it's something worth looking into the difference. It comes up like in a lot of front end interviews. the difference between like the view width and percentages. But for what we're doing for reflexive um, layouts, the viewport units are a little bit better for that sort of thing. Okay, so what happens if I just comment these out? Nothing. Cool. Then the arrows, are they being affected? Name of the div is ID left, ID right. Okay, so ID left, ID right. What is box? Box is box. Box, what are you? Oh, right, the image. Okay. So box, percent flex row. Okay. And if I comment both these out, nothing. Um, hmm. Okay, I'm noticing that the left and right divs they don't have flex properties, so maybe that's a line items center. Then I'll just do it just like content center. Okay, that's not doing anything. What if I just border solid red? So targeting the arrow, and then yeah, so just column one. Man, I just cannot figure out why these left rights are. Okay, here's a clue. You got orange space. That orange space represents padding. So let me click on that. Make this a little bit. This is the problem with debugging in like a mobile view is like your inspector gets like mad small. It makes it very, very difficult to work with. Okay. So margin. Okay, the orange is margin and padding is green. That's weird. What is that margin about? The margin is what's throwing it off. So you see that like on the bottom, it's like smaller, on the top, it's more. So yeah, it looks like 210 is your top and then 82 is your bottom. So what is that about? Um, okay, let me go back to the original left. So your margin, bang, there it is. Fuck, it's not doing anything. It's still showing up here. Why? Left and right. Margin is still. Okay, so that means that the margin is being declared someplace else. So simple way to do it is like I know it's 210 pixels, so I'm just going to do Command F and I'm going to look for 210. That is a number that I'm trying to hunt down. So there's another one. Looks like you have, yeah, the left and right. Double it up. Oh, it's the media query. That makes sense. Okay. So I'll move that and then I'll look at the other 210. Looks like it's right here. Bang. There it is. Looks like so Flexbox can't. Oh my god. Okay, so it's gonna be fucked up on the other view, but the reason for that is because, well, let's check on the full view. But basically, what just happened with the mobile view is if you're using Flexbox to center things, your like margins that are added to like an element are still like that's going to add to the math. So Flexbox is going to calculate how to make everything like all perfect and neat, and centered. Um, but if you add margin or padding on top of it, that's just gonna throw it off. And in the case of a mobile view, that 210 pixels might even eclipse the size of the div, so it'll just like go straight to the bottom or straight to the top, depending on what it like how it's being justified. Um, and that's what makes it like really confusing, because it could be you could have you can have like a parent div that's only say 100 pixels 100 pixels height, but you have something that's being like margin 200. Sometimes it'll just like push that element right out of the div, and then other times it'll just like stop pushing it, like depending on how the div is like declared in CSS. Like sometimes it'll have like a contain or like don't contain. If it's like a don't contain, then it's like you can push it out of the div. I hope that makes sense. Fuck, this video is like a half hour. I'm so sorry if you're still watching this, but this is good. I think we're finally getting somewhere. Luckily, you can probably look this at like 3x. So recapping, we're good on the mobile. So then on the regular, let's go back. Let's look at left. Oh, sorry, in front of me. Okay, so originally left column one isn't flexing. So you only have the flex, you only have the display flex declaration on the media query. That is like the resize version. So column one, yeah, display flex. So we'd have to display flex on the original column too, right? So let me stick to proper standard and keep it on top. So display flex, and then so this should just be line item center. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. Looks like that solves that problem. Fuck, this thing is so annoying. Okay. Um, so yeah, as long as Flexbox is declared on both, then you should be, yeah. Yeah, it looks like that's it. And it only took a half hour. Okay. So I hope that's helpful. Just to recap, if you just fast forward to it again, the reason there were two things that were throwing it off. One is that you did not have display flex declared on both the um, column one, like this is like the original, like non-media query, just like this is column one. You want to add in display flex, and then your align item center. You don't have to worry about justify content um, because everything is left to right, like in the div, and they're going to be packed together. So you shouldn't have to um, justify. Oh, actually, no, you probably should. Sorry, let me add that in. Justify content center. Okay, that's better. So now it's going to stay with the equal space between this salmon, solid salmon 5 pixel. Um, okay, so adding display flex, align center, justify content center into the column one, the ID column one, just like you do on the media query. And in fact, I think you don't even, let me see what happens if I take this off now. Take this off. It should just inherit it. Yeah. So basically what I just did is I took off the display flex direction, align that, and just my content. I took all that shit off of the column in the media query because it's redundant. You don't have to redeclare that when it goes into a media query, because all the media query is doing, like when you do this at media screen and max width, you're saying like this is something that I'm going to say is different about this div or this element or whatever the fuck I'm targeting when I get to 800 pixels. So if you're already display flex or display grid or display float, if you're throwing it back, you don't have to redeclare that. In fact, it's not just like this like hokey pokey good practice, whatever. It's actually really important to do that, because if you forever, for whatever reason, have to change that display, like if you maybe change from flex to grid at one point and you forget to update it on the media query, it's going to throw everything off. And it's like a really hard, those are like the really hard like front end bugs to track down, because there's nothing that's immediately like obvious, and using all these like techniques in the inspector, they don't really, like, it's really hard to see the overrides that come with that. um, Again, also don't want to open up that can of worms, but that is just basically, you don't want to ever declare display flex. Like, again, let your flex or your media query, let your media query inherit everything, and only use the media query for things that are going to be different. So this width 90 was 90%. I changed it to view width. It looks like, yeah, it looks like that's not in here. So that's a good example of something that you would want in the media query. Why are you using 90%? I don't know. I'm sure you have a reason for that. Oh, okay, I see. So with 800 pixels, so you're working with enough like big real estate, and then when you shrink it down, you want it to take up most of the screen. That makes sense. Yeah, so I'm just going to take that out of the media query, column one. And then the second thing was the margin. So you had the 210 pixels, 210 by, what was it, 80, 82, 210, oh, 20, wasn't even close. Um, I would just get rid of that. Anytime that you're implicitly using margin, when you're using something in Flexbox, like, have a good reason for it. If you know that you have to move something over a specific set, but like the second, I guess what I'm saying is like the moment that you find yourself like margining something more than 10, 15 pixels in Flexbox, then you're probably doing it wrong. Like, there's probably, uh, you want to use Flexbox to properly align things and to keep symmetrical elements cooperating with one another. And as soon as you introduce margin and padding, you're kind of throwing off that symmetry. And that can be, I want to stress that it's like not, there's a place for everything. And margin is like one of those exceptions. But for this case, like, just don't fuck with margin at all. If you're using Flex, just let Flex do its job, because it's really good at it. Computers are really good at math. And the second that we try to like, impart our own margin and padding, then it's just gonna confuse the flexbox, not confuse it, but you basically, it gets that you're just telling it to do something different. So, and one way to make sure that you're covering all the 210 pixels, like you see how you have it declared explicitly here as 210. That's really helpful. So like you can just kind of go to the top of the document and just do a Command F to search, and then just like type that in. So 210 pixels, and you'll see 1 of 4. So you can just kind of go through each one, and it'll be highlighted. Again, I'm pointing. You can't see me pointing. But those 210 pixels, you can find them real quick that way, just using the find feature, and then comment them out, and then see that's updating. Okay, so those are the two things. Those are the two walkways. Last thing I will say about this is I know you were talking about wanting to convert this into React, into like a React application. And I don't know if that's like because you want to be able to show that you can use React, or if you have like different things that you want to do with this design. I think it's a cool design. Like this is a good, it's not hokey, it's not like too clever. Like, it's like to the point. It's felt. It's very like there's no excess fat, and that's really good. And so maybe converting it to React is like not, maybe it's not in the interest of what you're doing. But if you are going to do that, then don't use IDs for everything in your CSS. So don't use the hashtags, just use the dots and make everything a class. The only thing it should be, if you're using React, the only ID that should be present in like the HTML when it's like spit out from React, when React compiles everything and turns it into a React application, the only ID is um, I think it's just called app. Fuck, I don't remember what the parent div is, but it's basically like React will do like the render. It'll like paint the page that it's supposed to like produce to the browser inside of that like ID div, and there's only one single div that contains everything in your React application. And the minute that you start introducing like other IDs, then that throws off React, and it doesn't know how to like compile them properly. So, but that's like down the road. So if you do turn this into React, then just do that. And even if you don't do that, like I would probably change them to classes if you're going to share this on GitHub for people that like want to look at your code. Because if you're using an ID for everything, like that's, I don't know, a lot of people just look at that and think that's like they turn their nose up at it because it's like an industry standard or whatever. Like everybody has their reasons for it, but that's some low hanging fruit for like, some dork that's going to look at your CSS and think like that's not how it's supposed to be done. There's plenty of articles about the rules of when you should be using IDs and classes, and so it's not for me. But okay, I'm gonna upload this and I'll send you this video. I hope this is helpful, and if it doesn't work, then let me know. It might be more useful to actually jump on Zoom. Hope you're well. Hope you have not died from heat stroke. If not, I mean, if you have, I'll 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 push the changes myself to your GitHub account. Okay, see you. Go Suns.